Long ago in the land of Israel, there was a king named Ahab. He became king after his father, Omri, and ruled in the city of Samaria for 22 years. But Ahab did not walk in the ways of the Lord. In fact, he did more evil than any of the kings who came before him. He ignored God's commands and chose his own way, a path that would lead to disaster. Ahab married a woman named Jezebel, the daughter of the king of Sidon. She was not a follower of the God of Israel. She worshipped Baal, a false god. Through her influence, Ahab began to worship Baal as well. He built an altar for Baal in Samaria, raised up images, and encouraged the people of Israel to do the same. The land was filled with idols, and the people turned away from the Lord. But God was watching, and he raised up a prophet named Elijah. Elijah went to Ahab and declared that because of his evil, there would be no rain or dew in the land until God allowed it again. Just as Elijah had said, the sky became dry. No rain fell. The rivers dried up. The land withered. The people suffered. Still, Ahab refused to repent, and Jezebel began killing the prophets of God. After 3.5 years of drought, God told Elijah to return to Ahab. Elijah met the king and challenged him to gather all the people of Israel and the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. There, Elijah proposed a test. 2 altars would be prepared, one for Baal and one for the Lord. The prophets of Baal would call on their God, and Elijah would call on the Lord. The God who answered by fire would be known as the true God. From morning till evening, the prophets of Baal cried out. They danced, shouted, and even cut themselves, but there was no answer. Then Elijah stepped forward, rebuilt the altar of the Lord, placed the offering on it, and poured water all over it until everything was drenched. He prayed to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, asking him to show the people who the true God was. Fire suddenly fell from heaven. It consumed the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the water in the trench around the altar. The people were terrified. They fell on their faces and shouted, "The Lord, He is God." The prophets of Baal were captured and put to death. Afterward, Elijah told Ahab that rain was coming. Elijah prayed on the mountain, and soon the sky grew dark. Rain poured down on the land once again. Yet even after witnessing God's power, Ahab did not fully turn from his sin. When Jezebel heard what had happened to the prophets of Baal, she was furious. She swore she would kill Elijah. Elijah fled into the wilderness, and Jezebel continued to spread evil in the land. Later, Ahab saw a vineyard that belonged to a man named Naboth. It was near Ahab's palace, and he wanted it for himself. He asked Naboth to sell it, but Naboth refused because it was his family inheritance. Ahab went home angry and refused to eat. Jezebel noticed and decided to take matters into her own hands. She wrote letters in Ahab's name and sent them to the leaders of Naboth's city. She told them to accuse Naboth of cursing God and the king. They followed her plan, and Naboth was stoned to death. Jezebel then told Ahab to go and take the vineyard. Ahab did, believing he had gotten away with it. But God sent Elijah again. Elijah met Ahab in the vineyard and gave him a message from the Lord. Because Ahab had murdered an innocent man and stolen his land, judgment would come upon him. In the very place where dogs licked up Naboth's blood, they would lick up Ahab's blood as well. And Jezebel too would die, and dogs would eat her by the wall of Jezreel. For the first time, Ahab showed a small sign of humility. He tore his clothes, wore sackcloth, and fasted. Because of this, God delayed the full punishment, but he did not take it away. Later, Ahab decided to go to war to take back the city of Ramoth-Gilead. He asked King Jehoshaphat of Judah to go with him. Before the battle, they asked prophets whether they should go. The false prophets all said yes. But one true prophet, Micaiah, warned that disaster would come if Ahab went to battle. Ahab did not listen. To try to escape danger, Ahab disguised himself as a regular soldier. But in the chaos of battle, a random arrow was shot into the air. It struck Ahab between the joints of his armor. He stayed in his chariot until evening, bleeding, and by nightfall, he died. His body was taken back to Samaria. When they washed his chariot, dogs came and licked up his blood, just as God had said. After Ahab's death, his family continued in evil. But in time, all the words spoken by God through Elijah came true. Jezebel was thrown from a window. Her blood splashed on the wall, and dogs ate her body. Ahab's entire family was wiped out. His dynasty ended in shame. Ahab had power. He had riches. He had a throne. But he forgot the Lord is God. He followed after idols. He listened to Jezebel. He killed the innocent. And though God gave him many chances, he hardened his heart again and again. The story of Ahab is a warning to all generations. No matter how high a person rises, if they turn from God and follow evil, they will fall. God sees every action. He remembers every word. And in the end, his judgment always comes. Let every heart be warned by the fall of King Ahab, the man who chose darkness over light and lost everything.